Welcome to chapter 11 of the book of Daniel. Chapter 11 is probably the most difficult chapter in the Old Testament to understand. It's a long chapter, and it has been thought of to have been something that took place thousands of years ago by some theologians or Bible scholars. And others think that Cyrus sort of made this up as something that might happen. I'm not exactly sure why they would think that. And then others like myself who believe this whole chapter is something for the end times. It hasn't happened yet. What makes it seem like it has happened is the names of these countries, and the rulers have similarities to what was going on more than 2,000 years ago. But those entities of the countries are still around today. To understand chapter 11, I believe, you have to understand chapter 12. Actually, I believe they're all one message by Daniel, and it shouldn't have never been separated into two chapters. Should have just continued from verse 1 here all the way to the end, because chapter 12 talks of it as a continuation, and it mentions in chapter 12 as a time of affliction, which hasn't happened yet, as something that had going to be nothing like it in history, and that this is going to take place, which hasn't happened. Then it mentions how the dead shall arise, which some dead arose when Christ died, then they came out of the graves, but it's not as the Bible talks about, where Jesus talks about in Matthew 24, where he comes down and takes the ones that are alive, and they will go up in the air to meet with the ones that were dead, that they were asleep. Talks about 12, it talks about the times and half a time towards the end time. It talks about words sealed until the end time, and then the 1290-day abomination that Jesus mentioned and is in the future, and then the 1335 days, if a person has went to that far, they will reign with the Lord forever and ever. So all these things lead me to believe that this whole period, two chapters are future. Now, the format here is a little bit different. You see two screens. The top screen is the same as we've been doing all along. The bottom is my pronominal expansion for this chapter of the Bible. A pronoun is a word that stands instead of a noun, like George went to the store and he bought coffee. George is the noun, and he is the pronoun, that he meaning George. And George is what's called the antecedent. And the noun for which the pronoun stands is called the antecedent. A pronoun agrees with its antecedent in gender, that is masculine, feminine, neuter, and number, singular or plural. So if it says, and John went to the store and she bought coffee, well, she doesn't agree with the masculine John. So it would have had to be talking about somebody else buying the coffee. So in these places where the pronoun are an elision in a verb that it doesn't say who the person is, but it did something, then I will put in italics the antecedent. And then the red letters that you see are entities that appear in the 11th chapter. And then at the bottom of the verses, some verses will bring in the people that are places that scholars believe these things to be, instead of being at end times. Of course, I don't, but I'm going to bring these in so you can see what others think. So it begins in verse 1, and it's Daniel, and you can see it follow along here where I put in these italic words, either the pronoun or the expansion or the verbal elision. Here it's I, which would be Daniel. And in the first year, a proton, has to do with the first, of Cyrus, stood for might and strength. So he is all prepared to go, and he's strong and mighty, and just everything is going good until he goes through this vision or whatever he sees. And then in chapter 12, he meets the divinity, and he falls on his face, and he has to be strengthened then. So he does, then he'll lose his strength, but he has it at the beginning. And then verse 2, it continues, and now I, Daniel, shall announce truth to you, that is the reader. Behold, still 3 kings, and there's our first red entity, the 3 kings shall arise in Persia, which is Iran today. And the 4th king, there's a second entity, shall be rich in great riches, so actually 4, more than all the other kings. And after his, the 4th king prevailing by his riches, he, the 4th king, shall rise up against all the kingdoms of the Greeks. And people believe these 3 kings to be Cambyses, Pseudo-Smyrtes, and Darius Hystaspes. And 3, and a mighty king shall rise up and shall lord over a great dominion and shall do according to his will. People believe that to be Alexander, and Xerxes was the 4th king. I'm sorry, not Alexander here. This is the mighty king shall rise up. Well, I think, the 4th king is Xerxes, but here a mighty king shall ride up, shall lord over a great, and police is not mega. Mega is a real great, and this means many, a vast dominion, and shall do according to his will. 4, and as whenever the mighty king's kingdom should stand, it shall be broken, and shall be divided into the 4 winds of the heavens. Now people think this is Alexander, and the 4 winds are the Diadochi, and the rulers after Alexander. I don't. I think it's a future thing that's going to happen at the end times. And not unto his latter end, nor according to his dominion which he lorded over. For his kingdom was plucked up. I'm sorry, I didn't read the other part here. And whenever the mighty king's kingdom should stand, let's go back there, it shall be broken. And the mighty king's kingdom shall be divided into the 4 winds of the heaven. And not unto the mighty king's latter end, nor according to the mighty king's dominion, which he, the mighty king, lorded over. For the mighty king's kingdom was plucked up, and to others outside of these, that is, the ones of the 4 winds that mentioned. So others outside of these. So the 4 are what it's talking about here, the Diadochi, the 4 successors to Alexander. And 5, and the king of the south of the 4 winds, and people believe that's Ptolemy, which here the 4 men were Cassander, Lysimachus, Seleucus, and Ptolemy. And they believe that Ptolemy was with Egypt, Seleucus, I believe, was in Syria. And so they think the king of the south is Ptolemy of the 4 winds, grew in strength. And one of his rulers shall grow in strength over him, that is the king of the south. And the ruler shall lord over a great dominion by the rulers, or the king of the south's authority. So here you have to go back and look find the, by there's of 2, his authority. Now who is the his? Is it the king of the south, or is it one of the rulers? There's the one of the rulers. the last one is one of the rulers. So the rulers is plural, but the one is singular. So it would go along with this he. In verse 6, it continues, and after the ruler's years, they, the rulers, shall be mixed together. And the daughter of the king of the south, that's a new entity, shall enter into the king of the north, another entity, to make treaties with him. And the king, so then Ptolemy was the king of the south, they believe, Ptolemy II Philadelphus, and his daughter Bernice is the daughter of the king of the south. And she, the daughter of the king of the south, shall not hold strength of arm. And the king of the north's seed, shall not stand. And she, the daughter of the king of the south, shall be delivered up, and the ones bringing her, and the young woman, and the one strengthening her in the times. So this all sounds like it could be the time of Alexander, and I can understand them believing that, but then as it goes on, it doesn't. And one, and I put man here, that would be another entity, because it's in the singular. It's a man. Anastasite is the verb, and shall rise up from out of the flower of her roof unto preparation. And so the subject is the one, and it's a masculine, so one man shall rise up from out of the flower of her. Her, Avtis, is feminine, the daughter of the king of the south's root, unto the man's preparation. There's Avtu, is singular. And he, the man, shall come against the force. And the man shall enter unto the supporters of the king of the north. And that's what it says there, the king of the north. And the man shall deal with them, that is, the supporters of the king of the north, and the man shall prevail. And they believe that's Seleucus Callinicus. And in verse 8, and there's reasons, so you can go on the internet and find these people that write all this possibilities, and they will give their explanations of why. And indeed, there, the supporters of the king of the north's gods with their molten images, and every desirable items of theirs, the supporters of the king of the north, of silver and gold, with the captivity, he, the man, shall bring into Egypt. And he, the man, shall stand over the king of the north. And he, 9, the man, or the king of the north, and the last one was the king of the north, so I'm guessing that's the one. It's better than the man. And he, the king of the north, shall enter into the kingdom of the king of the south, and shall return unto the king of the north's land, if that's what it is, instead of the man. Verse 10, and the man, or the king of the north, I would say the king of the north's sons, shall gather a multitude of many forces. And one man or son coming, even inundating, even shall go by. And he, the man, or the king of the north, or the son, which one is it talking about, shall settle and shall grapple together until the man, or the king of the north, or the son's strength, unto his strength. And then 11, they believe that was Ptolemy's the third Evergetes. And then 11, and the king of the south shall be wild, and the king of the south shall come forth and wage war with the king of the north. And he, the king of the south, which was the subject, shall establish a great multitude. But there shall be delivered up a multitude in the king of the south's hands. Then now these kings, the king of the north was Antiochus III, king of the south, Ptolemy the fourth Philopater. And that's what they consider that to be. And then in 12, and he shall take the multitude, the king of the south shall take the multitude, and the king of the south's heart, shall be exalted. And he, the king of the south, shall throw down myriads, and shall not prevail. And the king of the north shall return, and the king of the north shall lead a great multitude more than the former. And I left this out, somehow I missed it. And in the end of the times, he, the king of the north, shall come upon an entrance in great power and in much substance. So end of time. So that, to me, it shows here now the beginning of this end of times. I think it's mentioned 6 or 7 times in this chapter. So that's why I believe it's something that's happening. There's other reasons. And in those times, many shall rise up against the king of the south. Many people. And the sons of the pestilent ones, there's another of your people, which probably would be Jews, because he's talking to Daniel, shall be lifted up to establish the vision. And they, the sons of the pestilent ones of your people, shall weaken. And the king of the north shall enter and shall discharge a siege mound. I put siege because that's what it is. And the king of the north shall seize fortified cities. And the arms of the king of the south shall not stand. And the king of the south's chosen ones shall rise up, and there will not be strength to stand. 16. And the one entering, now this is a different person, or is the same in the king of the north. I think, I don't know. The one entering shall do to him, the king of the south, according to his, because the king of the south was the last entity, according to his, the one entering's will. And there is not one standing against his, the one entering's face. And he, the one entering, shall stand in the land of glory. That is Israel. It's got to be Savi, his Hebrew word. And it, Israel, shall be finished off entirely by his, the one entering's hand. So here's where I believe that good place where Jerusalem is destroyed again in the future during this period of time. And then it mentions later that Jerusalem will be rebuilt, and when it is, and the time for the end starts counting down. And 17, and he, the one entering, shall arrange his, the one entering's face, to enter in the strength of all his, the one entering's kingdom, and all upright with him, the one entering. Thus he, the one entering, shall do. And the daughter of women is another one. I don't think they think it's Cleopatra, and the daughter of women, he, the one entering, will give to him, the king of the south, to corrupt her, which doesn't sound like Cleopatra because she was from the south. And in no way shall she, the daughter of women, remain, and she, the daughter of women, will not be to him. And 18, and he shall turn his face, the one entering shall turn his, the one entering's face, unto the islands, and shall seize many. And he, the one entering, will cause rulers to cease their scorning. Only his, the one entering, scorning, shall return to him, the one entering. 19, and he, the one entering, shall turn his face unto the strength of his, the one entering's land, and he, the one entering, shall weaken and shall fall and shall not be found. Now, whether that's the end of all these 2,000, 2,500 years ago history, and now it starts and changes here, it's a possibility that it was all talking about something, and then it goes into 20. And it says, and shall rise up from out of his, the one entering's root, a plant of a kingdom, unto his roots preparation, casting aside exacting glory of the kingdom. And in those days he, the root, shall be broken, and not in faces, that is in war and battle, nor in war. They believe that's Seleucus, the fourth Philopater. 21, and one, a contemptible man, I put contemptible man because it's in the verb, shall stand. One shall stand. He shall stand. He, the contemptible man, because it says he was treated with contempt. That's why I call him the contemptible man. Shall stand upon his, the contemptible man's preparation, who was treated with contempt, and gave not unto him, that is God, the glory of the kingdom. And he, the contemptible man, shall come in prosperity, and shall prevail over a kingdom by a slip. They believe that's Antiochus, the fourth Epiphanes, who then came down into Israel, attacked Israel. And the arms of the one inundating shall be flooded from his, the contemptible man's face. And they, the arms, shall be broken, even the one taking the lead of the covenant. So now here's somebody that's Jewish. It could be the beast it's talking about here. Because the covenant would have to do with Israel. Nobody else has that covenant. And then 23. And because of the interminglings with him, the one taking the lead of the covenant, he, the contemptible man, shall deal in treachery. And he, the contemptible man, shall ascend and shall excel in strength over him, the one taking the lead of the covenant by a little nation. It could be, they're talking about Antiochus coming to Israel, but I think it's something in the future. So, 24, and in prosperity and plentiful places he, the one taking the lead of the covenant, shall come. And he, the one taking the lead of the covenant, shall do what his, the one taking the lead of the covenant's fathers, did not. So here it's the fathers generally, it has to do with the Jews. And the fathers of his, the one taking the lead of the covenant's fathers, didn't do. Plunder and spoils and substance, he, the one taking the lead of the covenant, will disperse to them. And against Egypt, he, the one taking the lead of the covenant, will devise his devices for a time. 25. And his, the one taking the lead of the covenant's strength, shall be awakened. And his, the one taking the lead of the covenant's heart, against the king of the south with a great force. And the king of the south shall join together in war and in great power, even in strength exceedingly. And he, the king of the south, shall not stand. For they, a figure of speech, whoever they are, shall devise devices against him, the king of the south. 26, and they shall eat the things necessary of his, and they shall break him. And forces shall break up, and many slain shall fall. And they believe that to be Ptolemy VI of Egypt. And 27, and both the kings, both the king's hearts are for wickedness, the north and the south. And at one table they both the kings, shall speak lies, and Antiochus, and they would say, and Ptolemy, and it, which is a figure, shall not straighten out. That's a figure of speech of something. It, generality, shall not straighten out, for its end is for a time. So there the end is being mentioned there again. And looks like I missed 28. And he shall return unto his land with much substance, and his heart against holy covenant. That would be the king of the south, and he shall, or the king of the north maybe, and he shall act and shall return unto his land. In that time, 29, the contemptible man shall return and shall come in the south, but it will not be as the first and the last. So it could have been, it was talking about this contemptible man in there, 28. And he, the contemptible man, shall return into his land with much substance, and his heart against holy covenant. Well, then that means if his heart would be against the holy covenant, he's turning against. It could be the beast turning against the Jews, Israel. And he shall act and shall return into his land. I'm not sure there. Anyway, 29. In that time the contemptible man shall return and shall come in the south, but it will not be as the first and the last time. 30. And they shall enter in it, even the ones coming forth, the Chittim. Now, who these people were, you can only guess. people think it was Cyprus. Why Cyprus? I don't know. And he shall be, and he, the contemptible man, shall be humbled and shall return and shall be enraged against holy covenant. And that's the Jews, and he, the contemptible man, shall act and shall return and shall perceive with the ones forsaken holy covenant. So they're ones that are not believing are probably taking the mark of the beast. That's my take. 31. And arms from out of him, the contemptible man, shall rise up, and once forsaking holy covenant, shall profane the sanctuary of the might. I would believe that would probably be in Jerusalem, the sanctuary, because it goes on, it says, and they, once forsaken holy covenant, shall change over the perpetual sacrifice. Well, to me, the perpetual sacrifice is something of the temple that has probably been rebuilt by this time, and it's close to the end. And shall offer an obliterating abomination, and this is what Jesus talks about in the future. And it didn't happen. It wasn't anything that happened with the Romans, and I don't believe it was something that happened right after that either, or before that, because it would have been afterwards when Jesus said the abomination, so it couldn't have been. It has to be something in the future. And it's not happened with the Romans and when Israel, Jerusalem was taken, so it has to be in the future, where Jerusalem will be destroyed to a certain point and then be rebuilt. And 32, and the ones acting lawlessly shall bring upon a covenant by a slip. I don't know what that means, but a people knowing the contemptible man's God, shall grow strong and shall act. And that may be Satan. And then 33, and the discerning of the people, believers, shall perceive in many things, and shall be weak by the broadsword, and by flame, and by captivity, and ravaging of days, which goes along with John, happening to the believers in the last times. This all falls together, I believe. 34, and in the weakening of them, the discerning of the people, they shall be helped. The discerning of the people shall be helped with a little help. And many shall be added unto them, the discerning of the people, by a slip. So people will be not taking the mark of the beast. 35, and of the ones perceiving, the discerning of the people shall weaken, to purify them, the discerning of the people, by fire, and to choose and to be uncovered until, or it is again, time of the end, for it is still for a time. So it's not yet, but it's very close. So all these end times are being mentioned so many times, and these people, the believers, will be weakened and will be overcome. And this is in, John talks about that in Revelation. And he, the king, so I mentioned this, the king, because it says it here, and the king shall be exalted, and he shall do according to his will, and the king shall be exalted. So now we have a new entity of the king. Shall be exalted and magnified over every god and over the God of gods, and shall speak pompous words, and shall prosper, until of which the wrath should be completed. For unto the end it is coming to pass. And this is in the book of John, the wrath and the beast of speaking pompous words, and then finally being done away with. All of these things, this is a preparation. 500 years before John, I guess. And 37, and unto all gods of his, the king's fathers, he will not take notice. The gods of the fathers and idols, I'm not sure, but are the desire of women. So now it doesn't mean he's necessarily a gay. He just doesn't care about him. He's so involved in his own thing and power. And concerning every god, he, the king, will not take notice. For above all, he, the king, will be magnified. So he doesn't care about anything. He's putting himself above all, as the beast is told to do, is showed to do in Revelation. And he, the king, will glorify a God of fortress at his, the king's place, power. And a God whom his, the king's fathers, knew not, he, the king, shall glorify with gold and silver and precious stone and with desirable things. Now, I don't know. It could be the golden calf or money. I'm not sure who he's who the God of whom is the king's fathers knew not. 39, and he, the king, shall act in the fortresses of refuge with a strange god of whichever he, the king, should recognize. So he makes up his own, Satan possibly. And he, the king, shall multiply glory, and shall submit to them, that is, the receivers of these things, many, and the land he, the king, shall divide by gifts to these, the receivers of this things that he gives. And 40, and in end time he, the king, will mix horns with the king of the north, with chariots, and with the horsemen, with many ships. So now here we go back, the king, in end time he'll mix the king of the south. I have king of the north with chariots. End time he will mix horns with the king of the south. Where's chariots? Somehow I mixed that up. Oh, I missed that. And the king of the north shall be gathered together unto him with chariots. So here again, end time, this is happening. It's not something that already happened. And with horsemen and with many ships. And he shall enter, and the king shall enter into the land of glory, and that's Israel. And many shall be weakened. And these, the many, shall be delivered from out of his, the king's hand, Edom and Moab, and the sovereignty of the sons of Ammon, which is Jordan today. So 2,500 years ago, and the countries are still there, it's talking about. So just because it's mentioning it here doesn't mean the future not happening is not the solution to this. And then 42, and he, the king, shall stretch out his, the king's hand upon the land of Egypt, and the land of Egypt will not be for deliverance. So now Egypt is on the other side of Israel, so it's all centered around Israel and Jerusalem, which I believe is Sodom at that time. And 43, he, the king, shall dominate by the concealed things of gold and silver, by he's going to not allow buying and selling, the mark of the beast and so forth. And in all the desirable things of Egypt and of the Libyans and Ethiopians in their fortresses. And the Libya and Ethiopia are still in existence. So again, it just goes to show that the end time is a good possibility here, because these places are still there. And hearings shall disturb him, the king, from out of the east and the north, which the east would be, would be Iran, something like that, and the north, Russia, Turkey. And he, the king, shall come in rage with many to obliterate, and to devote many to consumption. That would be the beast. And he, the king, shall pitch his tent of a royal pavilion between the seas, in the holy mountain of glory, and that's Jerusalem, Babylon at the time. And he, the king, shall come unto his parts, and there shall not be the one rescuing him. That is, that king, he's going to be destroyed, sent into outer darkness, because it continues, and in that time Michael shall rise up. In that time, in the end time. All these things are happening in that time. And Michael in Revelation says, and there was war in heaven, Michael and his angels to wage war with the dragon, and the dragon waged war and his angels. And so it's a cosmology of things going on the world and in the heavens. And so chapter 12, I already went through that. You can go through that and see all the things of how it finishes. And we'll be going into the book of Revelation next, where it brings down things we know are in the future, because, well, maybe some of the things happen because it mentions things that were and things that were going to happen. So we'll go through that next in the book of Revelation, and I hope you'll join us in the book of Revelation, and God bless.